Hey guys, so recently I read That Little Voice in Your Head by Mo Gawdat, and it's amazing, and his mission in life is to make 1 billion people happy, and I really think he can make it happen if everyone reads his book. Today I want to just go through firstly trying to understand your unhappiness using the 4321 acronym that he uses in the book, then trying to just really see the solutions for how we can actually change this in our lives, and detailing them and some of the examples that he uses. But there's a lot of homework in the book, so I do recommend buying it anyway after watching this video. Let's go. Before we actually speak about the contents of the book, I think that we should understand a few premises before we get going. So the first one is that the brain is capable of rewiring itself, and this is called neuroplasticity. So you are always able to change the way that you think. This is something you need to accept. Secondly is that if you are safe, you are in control of your happiness. Thirdly, a wandering mind is an unhappy mind. And fourthly, that happiness is a skill. The same way that if you go to the gym and you work out and get stronger, if you can train your brain in happiness, you will also get stronger and revert to it much more than you revert to unhappiness. So let's start off with what the 4 means. These are the 4 inputs that you are letting into your brain that are causing not good things. And the first thing is conditioning, which is just the traumas and the beliefs that you were brought up with. Secondly, we've got recycled thoughts, which are just the things that you constantly repeat to yourself, like almost mantras that you believe about yourself, such as, oh, I'm unlovable, or I'll never find someone, or things like that. Thirdly, we've got our trapped emotions. So these are things that we can't let go of, we can't accept, and we keep them at the bottom of our psyche, and they poison the rest of our thoughts. And lastly, we've got the most important one, the all-pervasive hidden triggers, which are the things that are all around us that can trigger us without us even knowing it. And the biggest culprit to this is mass media. So we're going to talk about that a bit more. Historians trying to analyse the past, or a journalist is trying to write a story about now, they're very careful about the sources that they are allowing to create their narrative. And it's exactly the same for you. Questioning your life, what sources are you allowing without questioning their validity or their usefulness? What, celebrities are you following on Instagram that might not be contributing that value towards your happiness? What movies are you watching that are skewing your perception of the world, skewing you more towards unhappiness? So these are the things we have to consider. So next we'll move on to the 3 of the 4321 acronym, and these are our body's defenses. They all start with the letter A. So the first one is aversion, which is basically the worst case scenarios that you make up in your head. What if my boyfriend finds someone prettier than me? What if my parents die next week? What if? This is okay, like to a little bit, because this is the danger side of our brain speaking. It's trying to protect us, that's its job, but we let it go too far, and that's why aversion is one of our defenses that can cause unhappiness. So what we have to do is we have to really remind our body that it's safe. Safety means if you are watching this video, you are probably safe. If you are at home, if you're comfortable and you're not in your, fight or flight mode, you are safe. And therefore you can tell this part of your brain to relax, and it should calm those what if thoughts down. So the second A is attachment. Attachment is about a focus on reward and pleasure, and keeping close to what we are familiar, despite it maybe not being valuable or useful to us. This can be seen in terms of hoarding items, keeping people close to us that are not actually valuable for our happiness. Mo speaks about the example in his book of his son really sadly dying, and how him and his wife gave away all the sentimental items that belonged to him to his friends and everyone, because by letting it go, they were free to actually cherish what really mattered, which is the life that their son had, instead of attaching unhealthily to all the objects that were his. A really good thing that I like that he said is the more things you own, the more things own you. And so here, if something is not giving you joy, the simplest thing to do is to give it away. If it's an object, at least it's as easy as that, because it'll have life somewhere else. It'll have life in someone else's hands. And Mo, he spends every single Saturday trying to find 10 things in his space that he don't give him joy anymore. And the third A is the all-pervasive dissatisfaction. And this is just this sense of, it could be better. Like, I'm okay now, but if I had this pool, things would be better. If I had this car, if I had that boyfriend. This is all to do with a lack of gratitude and lack of being able to accept the present and what is really in front of us. So Mo just suggests really getting into a gratitude practice here, reminding yourself what is good about your life, and just being more in the moment, because when you're in the moment you can really understand the goodness that you do have. But when you're looking in the future and the past, that's when you're able to enter this all-pervasive dissatisfaction. So next we're moving on to 2 of the acronym, and this represents the 2 polarities in our brain. So Mo talks a lot about the left and the right side of our brain, and how the left side is archetypally masculine and the right side is archetypally feminine. He says this isn't related to gender, this is just archetypal traits that he's putting to masculine and feminine. And each of us has a balance of masculine and feminine that is not related to whether you're a boy or a girl or anything other than that. The left side of our brain is responsible for analytical thinking, logical thinking, more mathematical things, whilst the right side is more responsible for compassion and creativity and intuition. He associates the left side with our more masculine side and the right side with our more feminine side. Why Mo speaks about this is because he says that our society has placed such a huge emphasis on the left side of our brain. Qualities that are valued in our society are people that are hardworking and super driven to the point of, no return. And these are left brain qualities, the analytics, the logics, all of that. And he said if he had only one wish, it would be to make the world more right-sided, because that's what we need. We're told we shouldn't trust our emotions, we shouldn't trust our intuition, and that's because we are being deprived of our right side of our brain coming alive. He says that everyone is on a scale, as I said before, and you really should try to analyze where you are depending on the qualities that each side of the brain is good at. In your life, try to create a bit more balance between being, which is the right side, and doing, which is the left side. Lastly, number one is obsessive thinking, and that people who have scattered thoughts, constantly thinking, the problem here is a lack of deliberate attention. And so you've got to really pay attention to your prefrontal cortex to try to make it stronger so that you're able strong attention to whatever you are doing in that moment. For this, he suggests playing games and creating some tasks for yourself when you're outside, let's say, and you find yourself ruminating. Create a list of questions that you've got to answer to try to bring yourself in this moment. Such as, for example, in the park, I told myself, find every single colour of the rainbow in an object around you. And it made me really look at parts of the park that I did not look at before. So it is good at drawing you in and creating that deliberate attention for the moment. So we're going to talk about the solutions now. The first solution is experience. And what this means, it's about the brain activities that are involved when you are paying attention to something. We have the default mode network in our brain and also the task positive network. We want to activate this one more because when we're in this default mode network, that's our ruminating brain. And remember, a ruminating brain is an unhappy brain. So we need to pay more attention. So here we need to think about the speed of our brain. And if we draw a line over here, then we can see on one end is a really fast brain, which is what's going to be going on when we're solving a problem. Over here is the meditative brain, which is really slow and relaxed. When we're ruminating, we're somewhere around the middle, and this is our unhappiness zone. What you've got to do when you're in this zone is try to either speed up to get to this problem solving task positive side, or slow down to induce this meditative state, which makes sense. If you think about a time when you're really in the flow of something and really trying to solve something, you probably aren't really able to feel those feelings of unhappiness so strongly. Whilst when you're meditating, you're obviously extremely calm and the world feels so light on your shoulders. And Mo in the book gives a lot of examples of how to do this. And the one that I really like the most is make it an aim every day to take one beautiful photograph. Not many trashy ones, but really looking around, trying to find the beauty around you. Because when you're doing that, you're going over to that side, you're going over to the more task positive network rather than the default mode, which is what we want to avoid. So the second solution is solve. No one is always happy. What we're trying to do with this book, with this idea, is we're trying to minimize the amount of unhappiness that we're in. We're not trying to get rid of it completely. That's not possible. And I want to talk about my favorite part of the book now, which is this flow chart over here. And I'm going to insert it so that we can go through it more clearly. We need to accept that your brain is a third party. Give it a name, disassociate it from yourself, and remember that it doesn't tell you the truth. We must accept that statement. Your brain just tells you what it thinks has happened, not what has actually happened. This is confusing because if we don't get the truth from our brain, then we're like, well, what are we supposed to depend on? Well, Mo says that we always sense what isn't true. That we can figure out. And the things that are actually true tend to just be dry descriptions of events that have happened, such as if I'm upset that me and my friend met up and I think she doesn't like me anymore, a dry, true description of that event would just be detailing what my senses were able to perceive, not my emotions. So when you get to the is it true section of this flowchart, you have to ask yourself, did my senses perceive this? What I am deeming is upsetting me? And also anything in the future is also regarded as a false statement because it hasn't happened. So you can only regard statements that have actually happened or that are present as true. However, if we do end up declaring that the thing that we are upset about is true, the next action is, can you do something about it? And here you've got to take action, come up with the next solution. And if you're feeling in a rut, you've just got to do anything, because the momentum that we feel, the positivity, oh, I did something, I can do the next, is massive, and you've got to capitalize on. Sometimes life really does beat us down and there's no way to get back into this happiness mode. It's so difficult, you know, but it still is possible. And I think Mo's a great testament to that, because his son literally died when he was about 21 years old, and he's been the champion of happiness and written all these great books. And he even said in the book that in 2020, with the exception of 3 times when I remained unhappy for a few hours, my average bounce back time was, to be exact, 7 seconds. That's unreal. And he says you can do that too. So it's about making sure that you don't perceive yourself as the victim, that you see yourself as the doer, not as the object of things being done to you. You are the subject, the doer in your life. I also just want to highlight in this flowchart how we have the yin yang of be and do, which is Mo's like philosophy, that we've really got to keep these in equal counterparts of being, which goes back to the masculine and feminine thing, really just sitting there, letting all the emotion and all the feeling come out before trying to problem solve our way out of it. Because a lot of people, I think, try to just fix first and come up with what's the best way to get out of this feeling, when you've really just got to be with it. You've got to flow with it, you've got to sit down and do nothing about it. The third solution is flow, and I want to start off with a quote from the book, which I think is amazing. Flow has gained a lot of attention in the last decade and became a trendy topic debated in business, sports and arts alike. Just as with everything else our modern society becomes obsessed with, we've productized it and made it seem like a privilege reserved only for those who work hard or perhaps pay for a trainer or a consultant to help them achieve. But that's not all true. Flow is a part of all of us. Anyone can do it. You don't need to be an elite athlete or anything like that. I actually got this idea first from Jay Shetty, but Mo seems to also say in this book that to get flow, you have to make the task a bit harder than your current ability, but not too hard so that it's just too overwhelming and you can't enter flow. Try to always reach that middle balance with the task, and you will find yourself getting better at entering a flow state, getting away from that default mode network and really thriving on being in the moment. Also, distractions make flow very hard, so we need to make sure that distractions are not in the way when we're trying to do this. Get your phone away. The fourth solution is giving, and Mo addresses this misconception that we think that when we give, we lose. We lose our money, we lose our value, and we don't get anything back. That's the misconception, but he says that this is completely false. He says that the giving, the feeling that you get when you give, is so much more than if you decide to keep, because we think that keeping doesn't have a cost, but it does. Keeping everything you own, it has a cost to you without you even realizing it. With keeping 10 plants, the cost of that is having to water them all. Everything is rented, nothing is truly ever ours. And if we loosen up to our attachment of all these things around us, then we can give and we can be free with that, and we can release ourselves from all this stuff that we're trying to control. He also says that when he's in public, he just tries to smile and just nod at people and try to even start a conversation with someone. And at first people are a bit like, what? Because no one does that. But then they're really happy. People are not mean usually. And it is really nice, because then you see someone else smile back at you and you feel a bit better, and you gave them a bit of positivity too. And it didn't cost you anything. It just has increased your happiness, you know? He also asks to follow the principle of, when you buy something, you got to give one thing away. So you're always like in equilibrium. And I think this is a good principle, because then you question whether you should buy something. Secondly, you're not accumulating so much stuff. You're really detaching from everything you have, knowing that you can't just build up a lot of things thinking, oh, it doesn't matter, I can keep all of this and my life will be the same. No, it won't. Overall, amazing book. I recommend reading it when you're going through a hard time, because that's what I did, and it really helped me shift my perspective and really try to stay in the moment, which has helped immensely. It's amazing, and the way that he speaks in it is like you're reading a friend's journal almost. He talks about his shitty life experiences, what he's done wrong, how he did it better, you know, really personal stuff, and you feel like you're talking to a friend. And yeah, amazing guy, amazing book, and I hope that you guys got something out of this video. Yeah, thank you.